I mentioned also Rinpoche, a lot of people also online in the Zoom.
So, first of all, please set up a proper motivation and thinking that I must achieve the full enlightenment quickly for the benefit of all sentient beings. For that reason, I'm going to listen to this teaching. So, Rinpoche said he was requested to give the transmission of this text, the three principal aspects of the path first. So, he's going to give that first. So, I'm just going to give the transmission of this text to the principal aspect of the path. So please listen attentively without any distractions. It is very important, to listen to the transmission attentively in order to receive it. They say the receiving transmission is very useful. Actually, it says it's more beneficial, than the commentary itself. Because once you have received the transmission, then whenever you do the recitation or the practice, it becomes very powerful. So I think maybe whoever requested, must have understood that benefit. So that's why they requested, to give this transmission.
Yes, all the money chance of the days to look at you with just a moment, you might be located at the Chitan is another is a was all kind of civil, the Lama Tsongkhapa, the way the way you will on the Makati to the engineer. And on the Jimmy was in the Delek to Shivita, and the Silla company to me, and Makali changes around to one and Tajunia Catella, Ila Comes and the no shade on the number of Queen one. Young son, Bishman, Theatre, Queen, you make it so much. Yes, you're going to what in your should not take you to Chavala and you don't know the some of the no other mission is for the individual. But then, no much as you say, to watch a should not change, Doga, the charger, Marie Movie, March, the Mamma, so much as you were, the Massa, Mana. Kade nega nega tong nega changbe manu je muzo somone sen jo che wala de ne ru be sha ma da na ye jue chaju se la ko che jong si be zawa chi ma ne be te sha ten de do be ta la me khang che kun de chen do ma che je de na ma yo lo wa me to ne me be te so khang ye ka che ba ten sa je ji be lo ma la shu no de lo me ba da to wa kele de ko ni che se su do no wa te se do ta de de ko ma to na shi re jo me wa chi ja da de de me lo to wa zo ni ne ge ji ni zo ga ji ye se do yu che ba du ba lo che na yu yu da se wa da du me me ta se je ko ma ni ju da de me cha se che ta zu da yu zu ba me jo ro de da na mo ji zu na mo sa je ne do rang ge chi ja da du be de ya ba de de li do che这些都嘛你的这些不，到底讲述的，他有点差异。
So that completed the transmission of the text.
他能看出来你要不进来摄入起来是吧？他那就做那么少的研究，像这用到别刀啊什么的嘞，他研究的落差的，他说研究如果这是落差的，这研究呢，这些个这如果说到那啥程度也不去呢，偏多的是。
And so this is the teaching on the three principal aspects of the path, and those are renunciation, bodhicitta, and correct view of emptiness. So we have already talked about the renunciation, and we are, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about it because it is important to understand it clearly.
研究现在科学的研究啊，这开始学他了吧？因为科学的研究啊，这个呢。 Hade kare hama kone kowa lenge ban judo de hako to mane te tam ne te so kowa lenge ban ju ma chen korwa senge te ngaro so saja do ndo so korwa mare yo mo che a chen kowa senge zabo le da do so kowa ije de so so te so kowa mare korwa senge de ju ju de ga konza so kowa so ju ju de ga 일단 코와 생겨대 코와 랭게반 요어제 코와 생겨대 가르치는 데는 사제 내와레미 품고 내내 좋은 게 처음에 사제 내와레미 품고인데 코와데 하고 사람마다요 뭐지야 커요 말에 뭐지야 제가 롬벌리도 사자도 코와 이제 소지가 그래서 봐 어디서 코와 말에 코와는 사제 내와레미 품고대 다 제일 내반 주셔야 돼 가르치 사제 내와레미 품고대 너무 실제들 야보 자반년에 뭐 되스 가르를 내 나사이는 사제녀와는 비표벌 때문에 용도와. 그러나 디밤 먹여 왔어서 강아지 사제녀와는 비표벌 때문에 용도와. 사제녀와는 비표벌 때문에 알아서 디밤 먹여 왔는 사게와 사만이네 요 말에. 사제녀와는 비표벌 내가 때문에 강가 용도와. 사제녀와는 비표벌 때문에 디밤 먹여 왔는 용도야 가 사제녀와는 비표벌 내 실제들 늘 칼아치 제거는도와. 얘는 별로체 요거는도와. 내 대상 내 고치 거근도가 저수 용식이요 말어 레레레레 네 칼레자니 저거는도가 저가 이다 되네 될 칼레자발은 되네 내 몸을 싸게요 디바 먹게 내 몸을 싸게요 저봐 여기 가셔는 다시 매는 그만큼도 예미 아니 소제는 샤주가 예미시 내가 다 제가 이제 제야 돼 어제 이다 제가 되네라 아니 디바 먹게 왜는 소지 싸게요 대 싸게요 가서 소좀 야모제 모시고요 그래서 then in order to generate the renunciation, you have to have this definite emergence, from the cycle existence, wanting very definitely to be out of cycle existence. That thought, wanting to be free from cycle existence, or definitely emerging from the cycle existence.
And so, what is psycho-existent? We have to understand that. In order to have this wish wanting to be free from psycho-existent, we have to understand what psycho-existent is. Some people think that psycho-existent is like a world, this world, where we live in, or the place where we live in, is like psycho. It's not like that. That's not a psycho-existent. The place is not a psycho-existent. Psycho-existent has to be included within one's consciousness. So each each sentient being has to have their own psycho-existent. So each the psycho-existent of each sentient being has to be included within their own consciousness. So in short, what is the psycho-existent? It is the aggregate, the contaminated aggregate that is produced by karma and delusion. So that the contaminated aggregate, which is produced by karma and delusion, is called samsara. And so it's not the world that we live in, samsara. And so this body or the aggregate, contaminated aggregate that is produced by karma and delusion is the samsara. And because of this aggregate, we experience all the sufferings. So all the sickness, the disease, we experience this because we have this contaminated aggregate, and also because of this contaminated aggregate. We create so many negative karmas as well. And so in order, this body that we have, which, came from the karma and delusion, in order to look after this, or in order to sustain it, we have to give food to it, we have to give clothes to it, we have to find a place for it. And so for all this, to gain all these things, we have to work very hard. And sometimes, we have to do wrong things, to survive, right? And so, sometimes maybe, steal the things from others, or even kill others, to survive, survive this body, and so forth. So this is what we do, we do, and what brings us all these sufferings and makes us to create negative karma. So we have to really understand well that this aggregate, contaminated aggregate that came from karma and delusion is the real samsara.
세상에다 고아래 매번 주셔야 돼. 서제 영화를 표본들이 매번 주마하세. 매번 주마셔야 돼. 서제 영화를 표본들이 잔대 절로 셔야 돼. 내가 자와치 그건 누구세. 아니 자기의 전세 가르는 단계에서 때문에 사실 영화를 표본들이 현재들 내 나사라서 봤더니 강가 내가 되는 용어도 대단 내면은 내 나사라서 봤더니 용어예요 말이야. 내가 전세 되라 때문에 사실 영화를 표본들도 자기가 누구는 별로 되시고 그래서 제가 고발에 매번 주마셔야 돼.
So the definite emergence, from the psycho-existent, it's like I said, wishing, to be free from psycho-existent. And what is psycho-existent? Is the contaminated aggregate. Because we have this, therefore we go through all the sufferings. We create all the negative karmas and so forth. So when we understand that because of this, that we're experiencing all the sufferings, we're creating so many negative karmas, then we will want to be free from that. And so that wish wanted to be free from this contaminated aggregate that derives from karma and delusion is what we call the renunciation.
어째서 빼나 가로서다나 사자이나다 강바이나다 강바들로를 내 나사 모아도 다 그러와 오늘 다 가르쳐거려 내 나사 모아도 아니 내가 소바더니 묘와 남나 되는지 토서는 고바테면 내내 배배로셔 용거래 사자이나 다가래 사자이나 사자들 내들을 나사 모아 영화도 내 사야 주야라 소바 금바 아니 내 나사라 소바 되는 용화 되는 저거를 아니 사자 되는 내내 배배로셔 용거래 내내 배배로셔 세물에 사자 되는 내반 용화셔 되는 내내 배배로셔 제도 잔대 절로셔거든 아니 되는 내반 용화 세거요 내 저로서 빼도 제대 쇼게야 되는 자체 나서 그봐 계속 알아서 고알에 내반 용화 제대로 고알에 내반 용화 제대로 내반 유도도 계속 셔야 돼 고아 가리만 셔 맞서 녹음하는 손으로 돼 난 고아에 내반 용화 고아전에 사마태와 고알에 내반 용화 저는 고아요 말에 고소 나도 대대서 되는 손으로네 다들 고아 대신 근데 내반 유도도 빼지 마잖아 그런 사고 사만에서 빼나 사자들 내나서 문고 용화라 소바 어떻게 주나 저는 내내 배불러 셔그러 봐 다 대대 내내 배불러 셔그 대대 다대 절로 셔그요 봐 에이다 사자들 내반 용화 셔 내반 유셔야 돼 나 주세 속에는 내반 용화 셔요 그래서
So just like, for example, if there is a house or a place where there's a lot of diseases and no job to survive and so forth, then you will not want to stay in that place, in that house. Right? It's in the same place, like if it's a place where there is a lot of diseases, a lot of suffering, and scarce of food and so forth, then you will not want to stay there, right, in that place. You will want to be, you want to like emerge from there, so get out of there. And so that's what renunciation is like. So understanding that there is a lot of suffering and a lot of problems, and wanting to be free from that, right? And so yesterday we talked about the renunciation. We talked about wanting to be free from cycle existence. But then later, when I went back, I thought about it. Which is, he thought about what he talked, and he remembered that he didn't talk about the samsara. He talked about wanting to be free from samsara, but he didn't. He said he thought that he didn't talk about the samsara. What is samsara? In order to have the wish to be free from samsara, you have to understand what samsara is, right? So that's why then he thought about it, and so today he thought he would explain about the samsara, and with the example, then it might be a little bit easier, for us to understand. So like if there is a lot of diseases, a lot of suffering, a lot of problem in that place, we will not want to have. We will not want to be there in that place, right? We want to be out of that place. So that kind of thought, wanting to be understanding that this is a suffering and wanting to be free from that, is called the renunciation.
Sendi no shendo ba, semi no shendo ba, dobe ta tele tene, tada tele ba, tando nye ka tela lome ba, cheche, te sendi no shendo be ta tele, tando nye ka tela lome ba, komba te cheche. Che semi no shendo ya tele, ane lende malo koye dunga somba tenye. Tenye kombe to che, ta nge ju somba chima mayi ba chi shego wa re. Ta shego wa ita shebi che kada re tu shun tada tele, teta kombe koye pozo la. Koye pato ye de won se de wa do ne me ba do pe jo pato so ba la so ma tani tani la ye me ke je to tani je chuna to ke je to lo lo ma she wa si ko la ye me se tani je chuna a no be lo de o ke je to yo ma she she tin mo che go ma de ane nya se ko do ta ba de ne jo lo de she wa si chuna ane nge ju so ma chi ma ma yi ma de she wa de se nge ju so ma chi ma ma yi ma she be che de de dan ga ro so ko je le nge ju de yo mo de nge ju po so ma che you so much money, but money, total, not sure that they tell you what you are. So I'm not sure that they church. Tell the tennis and you so much money. Oh, you so much Jima, my lord, share what I did. Or you put up a county, you know, tell the shed of me about them. Oh, then you make one another 10 or good enough. How about 10 years old, don't show what you know, and then you so much shame it said that there is a country.
So then, what is the definition of having generated the renunciation? Just like it is said in the verse 5, when by having trained in that way, there is no arising even for a second of attraction to the perfection or perfections of cycle existence, and all day and night the intention seeking liberation arises, then the thought of renunciation has been generated. And so in order to have that, and of course you have to give up the attachment or the attraction to the appearance of this life and attraction to the appearance of the future life. And so how do you give up the attraction to the appearance of this life is by thinking about the difficulties to achieve the perfect human rebirth, and the life has no time to spare. And then by thinking that you give up the attraction to the appearance of this life, and then by thinking that the action and the effects are unbetraying, and and then repeatedly contemplating the miseries of cyclistic, by repeatedly contemplating or thinking about the miseries of cyclistic, and you give up the attraction to the appearance of the future life, or attachment to the future life. So by doing that again and again, so by doing that, then when you have trained your mind in that way, and no arising even for a second of attraction to the profession of psychohistorian. Like professional psychohistorian, like we talked about yesterday also. So if you are healthy, if you have no disease, you are healthy, and you have enough wealth, a lot of wealth, and you have good position and so forth, then that's the profession of psychohistorian. So when you don't have attraction to those kinds, even through those kind of things, and then you have really, day and night you have this intention, wanting to be free from psychism. When you have that, then you have gender renunciation, and we have renunciation sometimes, like with that's like a very it's not a genuine renunciation. It's like a fake renunciation. So we have renunciation sometimes, like when we go through a lot of suffering, so we're depressed, and so then we say, "Oh, I wish I'd be free from this." That kind of thought, wanting to be free from this, that is not real, renunciation. The renunciation is like not having any attraction to the profession of psychology, even to the professions of the psychologist, and then throughout day and night, wanting to be free from that. That's called renunciation.
Khensur Khensur Shaba Nojega Nadoso, Lana Mema Yotaba Turi Sonja, Komotaba, the Lonja Roma, Mambochi Yorba, Oshie Desane, Tamalobi Suju, the Lonja Roma, Mambochi Yor, Kazishitayima, Lonja Roma, Mambochi Yobi, None, so what the Somalis, Lonja Tor, Nova Somerset, Ninju, Shanju, Yota, Tawaso, the Res, Kazushataraba. That's a Shone, Tatene, Ninju Tendotare. Ninju Tendotare, Shanju Cemetery. There's one that other day. Ninju Day and Nomda Cemetery, some of them are Lama Shanju. Also, the Vision of Ninju, Lodan, Shanju Central shares that. Ninju, so much cheaper, you want to think the Lama. Ninju, somewhat, can't show the Ninju somebody to teach it out of. And Ninju somebody get you as a teacher, Tati Jelly Shetagilla, or Tati Techibo and Dilma Titilla, Ninju somewhat Kaze Kona Yon. When they told a lot of Jatula Subatan Kaze Kona, Lana Novayota Zura Soja Komoto Togomane. Totogomane. Matoba Smota Tatanga Shanju said the grave will be chances you were down. And also Toja Tatu, the Lana Novayota Zura Soja Komora. Tangi Ninju so much as or taking Ninju so much cheaper and deliver the Tiguma the Shanju Cemetery. Good Jate Karo, the Shanju Semena, Lana Novayota Zura Soja Komoto Togomare. They may have done Ninju so big theater and Shanju Cemetery. So what else you will do?
And so in order to achieve the state of full enlightenment, we have to go through all these stages of the path, starting from the good devotion all the way up to the unification of path of normal learning, and the unification of normal learning. And then of course among all these paths, the main are the three the principal aspect of the path. That's the renunciation, bodhicitta, and correct view of emptiness, right? And so in order to achieve the state of full enlightenment, just having renunciation is not sufficient, and one has to generate bodhicitta also. So then that's what it says in the verse 6. Even if renunciation has been developed, if it is not possessed by the mind of enlightenment, it does not become the cause of the perfect bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. Therefore, the wise generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. And so like we talked about the renunciation being the most important. But then on top of that, again, even though it's very important, but on top of that, of course, without that you can't, enter into the path or can't get to there. But on top of that, and once you have that, then on top of that, you have to have the bodhicitta. Otherwise, even if you meditate on the renunciation for thousands or the millions of years, you will not achieve enlightenment, full enlightenment. In order to achieve the state of full enlightenment or Buddhahood, one has to generate bodhicitta, and that's in the verse 6 that's explaining the purpose of generating the mind of enlightenment or bodhicitta.
Sentient doing it now, Master Renunciation. You may not change your cemetery. Take Zawa Nunjun, they said, change the send the Zawate, Nunjun water, Nunjun. It is our sentient doing it now, Master Dunga Nasa Sugar. Sentient doing it Nasa Sugar. That's sentient doing it Nasa Sugar is not that, sentient doing it Nasa the Tenor. 学着求些经济去，如果来这钱我当面当是他的这你这在那一打，学着求些就学到我大概在忙一嘛，学钱我求些个这如果做到学是钱多个女才，咱学着求些经济去求些在看着要的这些呢，他得了这一求些东西，这求些真的这样要的，是吧？这那个是求些，这求些真。就那个求的了，谁求啊？哪有求啊？该有求啊？那求噻，谁个拿求工的多吧？他们求啊，我这个，那俺都是谁个拿求工的多吧？马都容易早晚年的样嘛的，是吧？我这那个是，反正这边那个是求些啥的了，大家知道，西边求，大边求，南边求，年末边求，个啥了吧？他这里讲中国有那么些这的，两边就能留下。
是不啦？
탐제 남캐도 당체도 기가도 캐 가시는데다 당체체는 나도 점에 정말 가지고 하나 되는 그 거기 모시면 나 이사는 점에서 있어 점딱 가지고 못 찾아 그러봐 내가 가지고 있다네 잘 담제 이거 내 얘가 주배 그러봐 저는 요런 것이
不是说的这个是这个拿去的结果的结果出现
就求人民求他需要接受的那边求大约求西边求年末边求我第一个说的这求我这个接受这些是可能是个说了论的那边求我这个那边说是怕切大外说求我这个的大外那边说是怕切那是要他的他也没给的西边求我这个西边说是说年末被求才的年末被求是罗那个马路是给我弄把刀把也不去用头用嘛的这一他那个现在的你这这个那你这这的用我这哪子的还过着吗
So that's the purpose, for generating bodhicitta. Why we need to develop bodhicitta is, in order to achieve state of enlightenment. On top of renunciation, one has to generate bodhicitta, and then after that, then it explains how to generate the mind of enlightenment or bodhicitta. In order to generate bodhicitta, one has to have a strong compassion towards sentient beings. So compassion, is the root of, it says the root of that is compassion. And the root of that is compassion. That is referring to the bodhicitta. So the root of the bodhicitta, is the compassion. So bodhicitta comes from a great compassion towards sentient beings. So then this is what explains what is said in the verse 7. So swept away by current of the four powerful rivers, tied by the tight bonds of karma, so hard to undo, caught in the iron net of self-grasping, completely enveloped by the total darkness of ignorance. So this is thinking about the sentient situation of these sentient beings, how sentient beings are. So think about that, then you develop great compassion towards them, and which leads to generate bodhicitta. And so here when it says, talking about the sentient beings, how the wretched and the situation they are in, and it's like they're swept away by the current of the four powerful rivers. So the four powerful rivers, they are like the causal powerful rivers, the four powerful rivers, and then there's the resultant four powerful rivers. So the causal four powerful rivers, are the four, the sufferings, like the suffering of birth, the aging, sickness and death, right? So those are the four causal powerful rivers, and then there's the four resultant powerful rivers. Those are referring to the four kinds of, actually it's all delusions, but it's like the the desire or attached desire. The river of desire is a river of attachment. The river of the view, and the river of delusions, like that. So because because of the being swept by either the desire or either attachment or the view or the delusion, one is carried by those currents of the four powerful rivers.
他这一般的，如果了解情况，当没当不下。除了抽这个了解钱的，就看对方钱多要是吧？他天天去多个的多搞的是，多搞的就在搞的这了解情况的当没个那么叫要的是，别那俺都说在这里， 공마도 라파토도 강가로 답에 그 남문에 저는 왜 송나 다시요 말아 저기 가만 체로 말아도 제노 더블 말 너무 더야 가려들 강가 답에 너무 좋아요 봐 제노지 그 레지 답에 너무 좋아야자 아니 쇼도에 저거지 저 가방 동안에 텐로자 아마도 제도 더요 말해서 빼대래서.
And so then the second line where it says tied by the tight bonds of karma, so hard to undo. It's like, we're carrying a swept by the river. You're falling in the river and you're being carried, swept by the river. And not only that you're being carried by the, but your hands and legs are, all tied, tied by the tight bond of karma. So by the bond of the karma. So like, if your hands and legs are tied by a rope and then you're thrown in the river, then there's nothing you can do, right? You just go wherever, the river takes you. So this is the situation of the sentient beings.
다 내지 지원 동백을 넣어줘야자. 아니 저제 저희 부서 서봐도 서봐다고 해서 남자 저제 저희 부서서 남자들 저제 자원 배자 제 부서 처대요 봐. 나로도 저제 자면으로 파파이나나 제메이나나 가레이나 저는 저자리 기타 도요 말아 봐. 저희 부서 처대요 봐. 제 나지가 나로서 저제 자원도 요 말에 남자가 저희 부서 처대요서 아니 제네 도요 말에서
And so that tied by the bond of the karma, which is not just like a simple loose tie, but very tight that is so difficult to undo, to lose it, right? To loosen it, to undo, and not only that, then also caught in the iron net of self-grasping. And so if we are caught in the iron net of the self-grasping, then you can't do anything, right? It's just like the mouse or other animals that are trapped inside the cage or net. They can't do anything, just like that. So sentient beings are caught in the net of self-grasping.
나도 저제 저희 벌써 숨이도 선에 주치는 나로 소리 봐. 저 대마세 되네 말이 그 저네 쟤네 가르쳐 가로. 말이 뭐 쳔베가 터미네. 그러봐. 터미네. 아니 저거 뭐시 더요 말해서 대면에서 뒤 또지 전에 뭐매 봐서 타매 봐서네 세반의 시와레스 세반 고원의 시와레스 세반 고원의 시네 아니 동아선지 전체 매봐 나와레스 동아선 아테 뭐시가 동아선데 동아 차반되지 동아선 동아선데 다다 들으셔 말아서 내 나사 용야서 동아래 아니 주에 동아선한테 서체지 대화래 다다 내가 전에 대화 요나요 저 조쇼래 제마 다다 텔 동아가 뭐 저도에서 다다도 대화를 다 영태 못이 가는 다다 대화를 깨지 제마는 동아지 뭐 로르고 대서라는 제비 동아자 근데 차반 대제 동아사는 알아서 서포트 소리래 사진 영화를 그래서 강아 아니 차반 대제 동아래 동아 써서 제가 동아서 제리 나지 그 정도에서 거기에 고사 강가 동아서 뭐 제리 나면 세제 정도에서 누르세요 다들 이해가 와.
And then, so not only that, it's just completely enveloped by the total darkness of ignorance. So it's like can't see. So when you are like in the pitch dark of night, you can't see anything, right? Not even your limbs. So you don't know what you're doing and where you're going and so forth. So out of this ignorance, right? Out of inner ignorance, then endlessly born in cycles. In the verse 8, that's endlessly born in cycle existence. And so because of these delusions, karma, and the ignorance, the self-grasping, we are born in cycle existence, created karma and born in cycle existence, right? And endlessly reborn in cycle existence, and then ceaselessly tormented by three sufferings. The three sufferings are the suffering of suffering, suffering of change, and all-pervasive suffering. And so the suffering of suffering is, of course, we can understand that the suffering of change, is what we call the contaminated happiness. Contaminated happiness, which looks like happiness to us, but then that doesn't, last for a long time, and then changes into a suffering. So that's what is called the suffering of change. And then the all-pervasive suffering, the condition, the all-pervasive suffering, is this very aggregate that we have, this very contaminated aggregate that derive from the common delusion. That's this aggregate itself, is the all-pervasive suffering. So because so we are tormented, by these three kinds of sufferings, ceaselessly or endlessly. And so thinking about these sentient beings going through such kind of sufferings, right, because of the delusion and so forth, and thinking that all mothers are in such a condition, and so all the sentient beings are in that condition, and then developing this strong wish, wanting them to be free from suffering. In order to do so, in order to free them from the suffering, then thinking that I must achieve state of full enlightenment. For that reason, I must achieve state of enlightenment, and that is called, the generate the supreme mind of enlightenment.
So dunga nazo sombala baba yoko to meba seje dunga nazo sombala nije yongsa tawa yone ma je dunga chega lori chemono sujo ya reda seje dunga nazo so ne nije chewala so dunga nazo so somba tenge do gores.
And so this is also not easy. It's very, very difficult, right, to achieve, to get that, great, to develop that great compassion towards others. In order to have that, compassion towards others, you have to have, compassion towards yourself first, towards oneself first. So if we don't have, that compassion, wanting oneself to be towards oneself, wanting oneself to be free from suffering, there's no way one can generate that kind of compassion towards others, wanting others to be free from suffering. So the Lama Tsongkhapa and other masters have said in their text that there's no way one can achieve a great compassion, wishing others to be free from suffering, without having that thought, wanting oneself to be free from suffering.
So the the kapalo to Jedon dunga janazo so bating a nije dunga, Ron dunga janazo so bating a new. And they go at that later. Or so never you so Yabush and Machina, and then Seja Toja may be a Nijeta Yabush chet over my rest. Then I the Pena say over Judge Chavano, Rangi tell them the rest and Melota and Mamena, Jenji tell the color chase. So dunga janazo so Balatane, Papa younger members. So that's a member develop, they do not another someone Nije, so the Yongsat in the over. They do not another someone Nije, the one, so the thing you know the guard.
And so, in order to, so these two, like in order to have that great compassion, wanting others to be free from suffering, one have to have renunciation, towards one, wanting oneself to be free from the suffering. So this renunciation and compassion are like the two faces, of the coin. So if you turn this towards oneself, that's renunciation. When you turn that wish, towards others, that's great compassion. And so, in order to have the great compassion towards others, one has to have the renunciation, wanting oneself, first, wanting oneself, to be free from the suffering. So the great Master Shantideva also said that if one cannot think about oneself, even in the dream, there's no way, one will think about others. So about others, in order to think about others, first one has to be able to think about oneself.
Never you thought the Tonoji Dunga to answer the Songa. Chateau the Maroso Danda de Navi Dumado, and then Yadoja Dumado, the new Dumano so was over the Tolta Noji Taya Yoma, there's a Tolta in Panachi, they change in Rochobiarva. Tatel the Tanen, this was over till the relation of Candios at a 10, this on to Yare. Now, Dumaj nothing is also about it. Then when the Tony Shadow gets it on the Maroso Nojilla, Tolta Nojin, now the Dumachamber was a cell Jenny. Kurukulla so the sort of thing on the Shega Yakson Chinny Omarva. 말아봐. 대이다 소도 되는 셔야 소는 동에는 안 원에 돈에 뭐지 타지를 봐. 소도 쳤하고 진행은 제 도서는 깨가지 쇼거든요. 깨가지 쇼거든요. 그러봐. 단단한 문화는 찬한 요된 것도 쳤하고는 뭐 예매 된대요. 그러봐. 그러니까 나사 가져서 용 거래. 그러봐. 어떻게도 뭔가 해야 돼. 오늘 나도 뭔가 너 중에 그 말하면 실로 자서는 가르쳐 쉬워 종서세 그러봐. 난 그래서 종만의 종세면서 뭐도 강가 말에는 게 되고. 어떻게 지내도 이제 그자 되니로 와. 되니 지내도 다한테 소소를 롱게리라 빼놓으라 해야 돼. 소소를 리를 빼내. 다 소소 되니 지는 지에서는 가리래서 제사 말해. 정말 대소는 도야 돼. 소소 되니 지를 내서 제사 말해. 내 먼저 세야 말은 소소가 샤체 소소를 뛰는 레나브라 소리 말아. 아 나도 대내가 말아. 거냐고 말아. 나 메르바 소리를 해. 대로 와라 깨지지. 나도 샤체 소소를 뛰는 깨지지. 자꾸 가르치는 이 체사는데 대로에 그래. 어디다 어디 롱티를 소는 공부하시네라 아니 바로 바로 맞에 비니제도 시거래. 됐다. 롱티도 소는 도야 돼. 싫어 괜찮아. 자세 상황도 다나데 근데 뭐뭐 쓰려고. 그와 동아체나 세도 소가르세는 무엇을 로만 집안을 요바. 소체세도 로만 뭐 있어야 되네. 어떻게 동아체나서 무엇이죠? 그러봐. 어제 다 간다도 먹고 응애 때에 못 하다. 내 가르치는 요배 맞지 가서. 당체 오늘 돈에 저러도 깨지 한 레바야 버르다. 오늘 전에 내 제가 지금 이 때에 시에는 그때 영다 제사에서 되게 쏘는 그런 가시를 했더니 백개 영 마시나 키시에는 깨져도 안 되고 만로사 되네 뭐는 늘 오늘도 그때 시에서는 되네 시에는 깨져도 안 되네 세자 되네 뭐가 누가 깨져도 안 되네 되네 말에 그건 해봐요 그건 당한 내 로셔를 그사래 되게 강한 거래 그래, 오늘 돈에 저러서 랑 생기시만 되면서 매 제가 빼도 제대 쉬어야 돼 되래. 누가 전화서 손을 둬야 돼. 신나 개천물에 가서 제 손을 산에 맞동하이다. 어디 대박 먹게 왜래서 간에서 쏴자고. 저는 너 그런 산에 샤게요 말아. 알아서 너사 가가 세워서 누나 선서를 가가 지내요 말아. 다다도 믿어야 돼요. 다다 믿어야 돼요. 그래서 산 담로 해봐도 냐와 해봐. 개치치래. 대대서는 네 자사를 말해 어제 공부하시기 바래서 제 공부야 무슨 거서는 아니 세제 내가 나와서 뭐제 비니제도 용거래.
So, in order to have this great compassion towards other sentient beings, right, wanting them to be free from their suffering, one has to have a strong wish wanting for oneself, to be free from the suffering. So, in order to have that wish, one has to understand about one's own suffering. And so, right now, you can say, we might say that, oh, I'm a human being, I don't have those sufferings, right? I don't have those sufferings. I'm not tormented by any of those sufferings, especially the sufferings of the three lower realms, right? How do we think about that? So when we think about the sufferings of the hell realm, like the suffering of the extreme heat and cold, or the sufferings, of the hunger, extreme hunger, and thirst, of the hungry ghost, and the sufferings, of the animals and so forth. So when we think about that, we should not be thinking of those sufferings just like if we were looking at the things in the marketplace. And so he says, oh, there's this. So we just go looking through them, like that. It should not be like, oh, they are suffering, they are going this suffering, they're going. So you have to think about how will I feel if I were to go through those sufferings. So you have to think about those sufferings upon yourself. And so so right now, and if someone were to pour a bucket, or a cup full of boiling water on your body, how you will feel, So you will not be able to take that suffering at all, right? But the beings in the hell realm, their body is like inseparable, with these boiling, hot waters all the time, throughout day and night, all the time, 24 hours, right? So all the time they're like inseparable. Their body is inseparable from there. That's always there. And so how will you feel that? Even if, in our case, we cannot take their suffering even for a moment, right? And then for them, so same thing, like in the winter, when it's very cold, below freezing degree, and then some, if we are thrown out naked in the street, how cold will feel, right? But the beings in the hell realm, in the cold hell realm, they are like, their body is inseparable from the ice or the snow, right? They're like, the body is frozen, the cracked, and all this, it's inseparable from that, throughout, the time that they are there. And so you have to take that, on your body. So, take that and the example on your body, and how will you feel, if you were to experience those sufferings? Will you be able to bear those sufferings or not? And so we have to take, think about that upon oneself, not just like, looking on others, but think about taking that upon ourselves and see how we will feel. Will we be able to bear those sufferings or not? And then we might say, oh yeah, they're like that, but it is not very far. We can be born there, we can be born there in the next moment. The difference, the distance between the hell realm, the cold hell, the hot hell, and ourselves is like just a moment, because we have created all kinds of karma to be born there. We have that imprint of those karma in our mind, and that can lead us, to be born in that realm. So it's just, it's just a minute or a second. Like, and right now we are human beings. When we die, in the next moment, we can be, born in those, in those realms. So you have to take, those sufferings, and imagine how you would feel if you were to go through that upon yourself, and then you will be able to have that a feeling. He says that if you don't get a goosebump, thinking about your own suffering, then how will you have compassion, thinking about the sufferings of others? So therefore, it's of course, like I mentioned earlier, the Shantideva, said, and also, so if you don't think about your own suffering, there's no way you can think about the other suffering, and there's no way you can think about wanting others to be free from those sufferings. And so, right now we are, born as human beings. But like I said, we have created all these kinds of karmas that, we can, the next moment when we die, we can be born there immediately. So we have to think that really, and then have those sufferings, understand those sufferings upon oneself, and then understand their suffering on others. And that way, then we'll be able to generate great compassion, wanting others to be free from those sufferings.
Rinpoche talk about Tamchu, but he doesn't translate it. Because Rinpoche said he speaks pretty long. He has very strong confidence for Tamchu's translator. This is the fourth time he come here. He's translated very well. He has very education and experience. Translator, you guys very lucky. You are very good translator. He went to many places. He found someone, even they don't speak Tibetan very well. If a little bit they say, oh, I can translate it, then they do a lot of mistakes. Therefore, you guys are very lucky person, but he didn't say that.
But in Seritzel Koro Kajaja, Yabu Jagadu take on Hankos. Take it on his Koro, there's a Sewa share to be in a Kajaga share to be. Yet is not an Sewa share, and Kajaga Sewa share Maton Sar.
There's also Tamchu translated before here, Hong Kong and Singapore. When it took us long time, when he took us time, he came twice, and after also my term, he came twice. He had very strong confidence. He speak exactly what Rinpoche explained. Sometimes even Rinpoche explained very well that translated to not able to translate. Therefore, he taught to more detail and more things to speak. Then translate no problem. He can speak whatever he said.
Thank you.
I think you should always better translate.
Lojo yapo machena pena nyame dunga de chemo kare yome hako to marwa. Tangaro so soje chomde dedo. Penu to so nyame dunga do yada che dunga do. Tandri dunga so ma she jawa tene yiche chene. Dunga chechu kaze yawara chene tes she yawara. To so lojo chene. 먼저 제가로 저 때는 소속이 대단한 영화들 한국면에서 빼자 도움을 누가 제 만에도 소속이 대단한 영화제만 있는 빼자 도움을 빼나 소속 나사 할래만 나사 지금 나요나 현다지 뭐지 대나도 지금 때때도 안 나그래 송그래 빼나 나를 찾아는 나는 막사 생각대로 손안에 손이 오면 저게 고자 매번에 오면 나를 고자 손안에 라이면 다시만 게트든지 손안에 생일에 오면 거는 쓰는 것은 나타제에서 그도와 오늘 손안에 좀 나야 오면 좀 나시어서 내려라야 전에 몇 개들이 나요 그도와 다들 소속은 연요야도 미 손안에 생일대신 내려 봐서 그러와 내가로서 내가한테 내가 정보를 알레 이치체가를 뭐 소속이 다는 요거야 말이야. 그 이치체가 다 성제 성제도 소리 이치만체는 이치체사요 말이야. 소속이 자지 세고 말이야. 뭐 전에도 빼내내라 이제 누가 전화하면 뭐제 매니저 그 소속 누가 전화해서 하고 그거. 하고 소속 누가 전화해서 소속 연락을 해서는 가려고 살아. 어땠어야 돼서.
And so therefore it is very important, to study about the Dharma, because Dharma teaches all these things, right? We don't know about the herons, we don't know about the hungry ghosts and so forth, right? And we can't see them, but Dharma teaches it, so therefore it is important to understand the Dharma, and that way we will understand about these sufferings, and then that way we'll have be able to have compassion towards them. If the Buddha haven't explained, if we don't believe in Buddha and then the Buddha haven't explained or the Gurus haven't explained, then we will not know. So we have to study and what the Buddha and the Gurus have taught, and then we understand that, right? And so when we understand that, and then we take the suffering upon yourself, or imagine that suffering upon yourself, and how will you feel if you were to go through that? Then you will say, oh yeah, this is unbearable, I can't take it. Then you will feel, for others when we think about their suffering going through that. Rinpoche said, he had the toothache, very bad toothache when he was in Boxer, and at that time, of course, there was no doctors, no clinics around, so he took it out by himself with a knife, and it was very painful. And then later, when his disciples complained that they have a toothache, he said, he said he can feel it. So he said, go and go see the doctor. Right away, because it's very unbearable. When you get the toothache, you feel like big pain all over your head or in your brain like that, and it's very unbearable suffering. So just like that, and whatever the Buddhas have explained about these sufferings, the herons, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, of course, we have to believe in them, right? Why will Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will not, tell the lie, or there's no reason not to believe in them. And so, so just like they explained that, those sufferings, think about that upon your own self, and then you'll be able to think about, those sufferings on others, and have the strong wish for them to be free from those sufferings.
다 단계 저는 어제에 민족의 선바 선지가 나나면 와야나 봐 선지적고 토토고 말이야 대대 정주주 세우고 그래서 아니 정주주 세대로 내가 가는 로가를 두지는 다들 전체 동안에 나와라 맞에 매니저들로 가래서 그봐 근데 대내도 손에서는 정주중도 세미체고 와 정주중도 세우셔서 되라 아니 다다 가르고 뭐 저지 바데 아저샤게 류동 내 다다테 자세 샤완이 류니요 정주주 세로 정도 되라 전도 정도를 대도 집바 이세로 다 거기 리투요 말이야. 그러면 저제 바데 아저씨가 류了 전주지 세로 정도 제당 자세 샤완이 류了的呢 전주지 세로 정도 지금이요 그래서 다 그거는 단단 가르를 되시는 가르를 사람하지 저제 바데 아저씨 류တယ်아니 제대 명은 되세네 마시 저제 저도 영어 좀 이제 좀 나서 나다 세네 제대 명은 되지고는 로주야 수요요 그래서 다들 단단 가르 소리 되제 멍타고 그래서 And so, so one has to have the renunciation, right? But renunciation alone is not enough to gain enlightenment. On top of that, you have to generate bodhicitta, and the way to generate bodhicitta is by developing strong, great compassion towards all sentient beings, and then wanting to achieve enlightenment, to benefit sentient beings, to free them from the suffering,
In order to generate bodhicitta, there are two different ways you can generate bodhicitta, and one is called the Lama Tsongkhapa's way, and the other one is the Great Master Shantideva's way. And so there are two ways, so the Lama Tsongkhapa's way, of generating bodhicitta is we call the sevenfold cause and effect instruction. The sevenfold cause and effect instruction is like starting with recognizing all sentient beings as Master Mother, remembering their kindness, and wishing to repay their kindness, and developing great the loving kindness, and developing great compassion, and the special intention or superior intention, and then after that, comes the result, the cause and effect. So the effect, the sixth cause, and the seventh one is the effect. So that's called the sevenfold cause and effect instruction, and that is kind of long. So Rinpoche says he's not going to explain that.
도도 제가에는 다 너무 좋은 재미를 제대로 맹마 대지 거니를 로종에 가려서 소소를 막가리 첨보로 와서 마대 가리쳐 버려서 데이터 세제도 저 롱에 마체 많이 봐 장안이네 요 말에 데이터 셈제도 이제 마체 유바에 다되네 가리쳐 버려서 대라고요 그래서 봐 어제 나고요 그래서 됐다.
And so in the Lama Tsongkhapa's system or way of generating bodhicitta, the first one is to recognize all sentient beings as one's mother. And so there isn't any sentient beings who has not been one's mother. And then at the time when they've been our mother, they have been very kind to us. And so therefore you have to think about the kindness of the other sentient beings.
자세 세와 내가 많이 배제 말에 세제 강가 가지 첨보래서 세제 방문제 소소를 가지 첨보래서 많이 배제 말에 가지 첨보이 말에 가르려 주시는 나로서 사야 투야 개야 강가로 세제 제다선에 용가로 봐 소소를 자원이네 요 말로 봐 제자가 대 할레벨로 또 첨보래 정말에 저는 다 이유 그게 내가 내줘래서 나로서 사야 투야를 다 알레 제때 말에 저번에 사야 투야 개야 강가로 세제선에 용가로 모두 소소를 자원이네 매봐 소소선에 용거요 봐 데이터 세제면은 소소를 사야도 개야들은 용야요 말에 소소 진보인의 대용야 짜네요 말에 이제 세제요하자 소소를 사야도 그가도 대수 용어로 봐 데이터 세제의 가르침을 나다 체들은 제때 매우면서 시나요 가르침을해서 가르려 주시는 소소 사야 개야 투야 강한으로 어느 세제산에 용거고요 와서 데이터 세제의 가르침을해서 대가로서 세제의 가르침을 예마 하마고는 세제 지지를 내세서 통치者라마다 도지동네 로고요 봐 어때 문에 할레벨 마르마래서 마르마 첨보래서 돼 소소 강가로로 대산에 용거요 아유마가 돼 도지동은 로되나 마르마 첨보래서 데이터 세제의 가르침을 예마데 이제는 차장에 예나요 다 넘어서 고마지데 저 차번 말에 사무 동반이 거지 말에 손으로 동네 도야요 아로서 사야 개야 중앙에서 세제산에 용거도 용거면 돼 강가 세제산에 용거하래 대목은 세제면은 소소 내사 매봐 누반드는 세제 치면은 소소 가는 데 가래 내사요 말에 세제 가리 전부래 챈들의 속에는 세제 가리 전부래서 뉴스 어디지 뭐
And then according to the great Bodhisattva Shantideva's way, it's not just because they have been our mother, but even if they have been very kind to us, and even if you're not thinking about them being your mother, they're still very kind to us because everything that we have now is by the kindness of others. So the other sentient beings, because of other sentient beings, the food that we eat, the drinks, the clothes that we wear, and the place that we live in, is all from the other sentient beings. So if there was no other sentient beings, if we were ourselves, then we would not have anything. So everything that we have now is by the kindness of other sentient beings. Everything that we have now, right? So even from the worldly perspective, sentient beings are very kind. Others are very kind because it's all because of others that we have the food that we eat, the drinks, the clothes that we wear, the place that we live. It's all by the kindness of others. If there were no others, then we will have none of these things by ourselves, right? We will not be able to enjoy any of these things by ourselves. And so, while this whatever we have is all by the kindness of other sentient beings, yet we do all kinds of things to harm other sentient beings. We look down on them. We kill and beat and scold and even kill them, right? And do all kinds of bad things, while understanding, while everything that we have is by the kindness of others. And so this is a very big mistake that we are making, by treating others in the wrong way, because whatever we have is by the kindness of others. And so, so this is not difficult to understand. So it's very obvious that whatever we have, all the food that we eat, the place we live, the clothes that we wear, is all from the kindness of others, right? We get through others. It's not like difficult like understanding the profound emptiness, right? And so it's very easy, to understand that. So we have to understand that and think about their kindness. And so our achievement, the final achievement, is the Buddhahood, right? So what we are seeking, is Buddhahood. Of course, it's not easy, and it might not, happen right away, and it might take a long time. But still, that's what we're seeking. The peerless state of enlightenment. And so that peerless state of enlightenment also comes, by depending on the sentient beings. If there are no sentient beings, then we'll not be able to achieve the state of full enlightenment either. And so in order to achieve state of full enlightenment, we have to generate bodhicitta. For that, we have to generate great compassion. So the great compassion comes from thinking about the sentient beings, right? If there were no sufferings of the hell realm, the Holy Ghost, the animals, then we'll not be able to generate the great compassion. So without great compassion, we'll not be able to generate bodhicitta, or we'll not be able to achieve enlightenment. And so achieving enlightenment, or even generating bodhicitta, or even generating great compassion is all by the kindness of other sentient beings. So without other sentient beings, there's no way we can achieve any of these things. So therefore, because of that very reason, and not because they have been your mother, but because of that, because of the sentient beings that you can achieve the state of enlightenment. Therefore, you can think about sentient beings as being very kind to you. So there's the great bodhisattva Shantideva, said, so for you to gain enlightenment, you have to rely on both Buddha and the sentient beings equally. you have to depend on Buddha, to gain enlightenment, and you have to depend on the sentient beings equally. But you respect the Buddha, you bow down or you make prostration to the Buddha, but you look down on the sentient beings. It says whose system is that? So he's saying like it's the great bodhisattva, it's the great mind is thinking in that way. So think about the sentient beings. It's like asking, sentient beings are equally kind, for us to gain enlightenment as the Buddha. Then why are we only making prostration and respecting the Buddha and not respecting the sentient beings? And so, so in order to have that kind of compassion, and then we have to think about all these, the sentient beings, how kind they are for us, to gain enlightenment, and for us to develop bodhicitta, great compassion, and so forth. So this is mainly to remember, to think about how kind they have been to us. And then through that, then we can generate bodhicitta and gain enlightenment. 여기 날 가지고 또 마시지 말아. 다 저런 집어서 비셔만 치워야 되는 요래 제목 더야 가르랬으니 진짜는 가지고 돈이 제모요. 오늘 대단한 저로서 샤레도 요 안에 내가 너의 쇼라. 자 제목 제마도는 대제 요래 전화다 로저 제게는 야 보여. 내가 제위 쇼라. 제보 동이나 내가 제위 쇼라 제보 동이나 또 제 로저 제거나 제가 내가 사대를 제거해서 봐줘야 사원이네 요 말에. 그봐. 너가로서 다 로저한테 제거든요. 내가 사서를 제거해서는 자야요. 막 당연히 저로서 줄지지. 되게 저로서 니요 동로 그죠. 그봐. 가르를 쓰시나 내 말을 다 배를 자살을 개개치를 개주세요. 되게 개주티가 개개들 난 그마티 잡아서 강간 올라지 네가 동안 놓고요. 네가 동안 하고 그러고 네가 동안 놓고요. 개주티가 개개들 얘 많이 올래가 도가서 놓게서네. 미강은 놓고 되서 셔두가. 개개들 대대 내가 사디로 조그레스 아고서로 내가 사디로 조그레스라 그러고. 아니 녀마 찔러 메시 셔네 근데 로커를 다 배네 로커를 뒤지는 빼 무거 중에요. 상해성한테 줘야 되는 개개들 통한테 개주템 가르 개주 하나 메모고지 상해성을 속에 되지고서 보게 내가 사는 내가 또 개로요 그래서 라도가 내 가르를 되시는 신호를 내가 사용해 봐 다 대체했다. 어떻게 뭐가시든 나로서 대성에서 팬들 나는 팬들 저런 대체 팬들을 좀 뉴스 야 여기 So the renunciation and bodhicitta is a very vast subject. There's so much to talk about and so much to learn about it, so much to study about it. So it's of course it's a very vast subject. So we should study as much as we can. We can't. Of course, we all have to do our works and other things, but on the side of the work, is to also make a time, to do the studies and practice. So if we say, oh, I have to work and I have to do other work, I have to do my job, so therefore I don't have time to study, we can say that, we can make that excuse, but that excuse will not be accepted at the time when we meet with the Yama, the Lord of Death. They say, oh, can say, oh, I didn't get to practice because I was busy doing my job. And they say, oh, okay, you guys could, you never said that. You will not be excused for that, And so, what you need, is the study and practice, that you have to do yourself. So you have to do it no matter what, And so that will not be accepted. Just like Rinpoche said, he was appointed as the abbot, of the monastery and had to do a lot of work, for many years. And he can't say that, oh, I was appointed as abbot and I was very busy doing that and didn't get a chance to practice Dharma And so if he said that he would not get excused, for that either. And then maybe he said maybe he might get even scolded worse, because they say, oh, you're a monk, you should be supposed to do practice. How could you not practice? You can get even reprimanded, more. And so anyway, so of course we all have a job. We were very busy with our work, but on the side, we should make time, to then do the studies, do the practice, and so forth. Just like we should make a time, to enjoy, right? Enjoy, have a party, and so forth. So on the side of the work. So just like that, we should make a time, to do the practice, to do the studies. So I will tell you, he will tell you the stories, so maybe that will waken you up a little bit. So in Tibet, there was this the teacher and disciple. They were living together, and then there are other monks and other monks. They were all going for a picnic. Right? So you go out, to do picnic, and then one day the disciple said to the teacher, "Oh, teacher, let's go to the picnic." And then the teacher said, "Oh, no, let's finish the job first, and then we'll go to picnic. And we'll go to picnic after we finish the job." And then after a few days, there was this somebody died, and the dead body was carried. It was being carried in the procession, right? So, like in Tibet, when somebody dies and they carry the corpse when the corpse is carried, the people will all be like following that and behind the person who's been carried, and then the teacher saw that, and the teacher saw that, and then he asked his disciple, what's happening? Why people are all following that? And then the disciple said, "Oh, because he finished his job now." So that means like you will finish your job only when you die. Until you die, you will always have some job. You will not be able to, do any and will not be able to finish your job. So this is, and when he saw that corpse being carried, and then the disciple said, "Yeah, now he finished his job." And so that means now he can go on picnic. So Rinpoche said that was very helpful, for himself to think like that, to think of that, example, and maybe it will be helpful for you too.
Ante sombatere. Enjoy shonsa yontabe tawa. Yontabe tawa gube jose karere. Yontabe tawa cherela toni tobe tawa terba. Toni tobe tawa. Te gube jose karere danandeno tegunga. Nelu tobe shira medena. Enjoy shonje sala komche sebe tawa cheba menebe. Tesher tere tobe tala beesa. Enjoy to shonje sedi komba yapo chene chege yinayo. Koye tawa de cheto ma lese. Ruba, Koy Tawa Jet of Mades, Koy Tawa Jabala, Koy Tawa Jet of the Dominga to Chilochigo. Koy Tawa the Danza Terova. What did Tawa the Bevazola, Lame to be Shira to go? Take that Neo to be Shira, Madana, Niju Sala, Conscious, Sibi Tawa Jaba, Manebe, these are the Tele to be Tala Bezer. When it's Chilena, these are the Tony to be Tala Bez Lagwat. Adena Lazarva, Niju Sala, Conscious, Sibi Tawa Jaba, Manebe. What to be Shila, Madena, Ninju Shonju Sala, Conscious, Sibi Tawa Jabam, Tation Tele to be Tala Bez. One is Ogena, Tation Nele to be Tala Bezel. They are Jeremaja Chavachi, Isabel. She Chavachi, when it on the Koro Tezon, Nele to be Shila, Madena Lazarva. Teta Tation Nele to be Tala Bezego, Yambala, and Tation Tele to be Tala Bezel. Then they are both she's on a Tony to you. Then they are watching shooting also Tony Mato, but then they are watching Hago money. Then they are watching shooting, and then Nelu, Tony the two you want. Data, this and then to be talent. Tony Tomato Tamaka, then they Tomato Tashi Chess, and that's one. The question Chabo is to do. This and then to be talent, bears. I teach her the
And so then the third one, is the correct view of emptiness, right? So it's like it says here in the verse 9, without the wisdom relies in ultimate reality. Even though you have generated renunciation and the mind of enlightenment, you cannot cut the root cause of circling. Therefore, attempt the method to realize dependent rising. And in order to cut the root of the cycling, the root cause of the cycling, and you have to apprehend you have to have the apprehension that is directly contradicting with the samsara. And so the samsara, what is the main cause of the samsara is grasping at the self and grasping at the self. So therefore you have to realize the selflessness in order to cut the root cause of the samsara, the self-grasp, the ignorance. And and then here it's at the beginning, the first line it says, without the wisdom realizing ultimate reality, right? And then even though it cannot cut the root cause of suffering, therefore attempt the method of realizing dependent rising. So it should be therefore attempt the method to realize the ultimate reality. Instead of saying to realize the ultimate reality, and he said, Lama Tsongkhapa said, dependent rising. And then he said that there's a great significance in saying that because dependent rising, if you understand the dependent rising, then you if you really understand the dependent rising well, then you will be able to understand the emptiness. And so for understanding the emptiness, you have to understand the dependent rising. So therefore, in the last line, that's what Lama Tsongkhapa said, attempt the method to realize dependent rising instead of saying attempt the method to realize ultimate reality. So we stop here for tonight.
그노 야보제 그래 쇼다 되네 차조제래요 선이 차거래 좋아 선이 차거래 셔다 요요 말이라 네 선이 가로 소요 이주그 말로 되는 가로 강에 차조제래로 대한 레벨에 유대 개체고 있으면 봐 남성노세서 로제 자와 로종노세서는 셔다 개체고 나로서 가로 뭐 가르 셔나요 로토모이 제 용가네 로토모 와서야 돼 아시아테반에 제베거든요. 런저수 로종가르. 한 강가 차소를 좀 하다가 로제 자 넘버스한테라 로 마죠나 오냐 더가 말해. 막 그래도 온 더야 자원이네요 말해. 정말 그래서 로 야보지 종가르 나르서 뭐 제가 로가 제가 요런 것도 잔네 더가 말해. 그래서 손은 제가 마도 이 정말 제가 마도나 제가 고마테제 제가 로게네요. 그러러 제 가토지 더야요 말해. 일단 제 개체 뭐 있어.
So tomorrow, come with a proper motivation again, to receive this teaching again. So tomorrow, we'll complete the whole thing. So tomorrow, when you come tomorrow, then you will have received the whole teaching on these three principal aspects of the path. This is very important. Without this, without these three principal aspects of the path, there's no way one can even achieve, the initiations. So in order to engage in the practice of the tantra or receive initiation, you have to have trained in the common path. So the common path, the three, the renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness. So understanding that, is very important. Without that, we will not be able to, receive initiations. And so maybe, if we don't understand all the whole path, of the stage of the path to enlightenment, but just, having these three understanding is very important. Without that, we will not be able to receive initiation and so forth. And so, maybe, we can receive, initiation just by, by following the explanation that's given at that time. But having understanding of these three principal aspects of path is very important. Okay, so turn to page 39 in Kurukulla prayer book. You need to see it. This is the Thanksgiving mandal offering. Page 43, if you see it. In the snow mountain and so cold and source of every benefit and joy, the Lord can send your soul cherishes, remain in life till some sort of end. Page 49 for the short long night prayer from the Rinpoche. Prayers of dedication in page 57. To this virtue may I safely, having in Guru Buddha says, exist and habit sentient beings without exception in that state. Precious supreme body mind, may it whereunborn arise, and wherefore never decline, but increase forevermore. Yeah.